Sometimes cinema wears down a rut and falls in it, telling the same 6 stories over and over again. And that's when it's about time to shake things up. These are our top 10 favorite rule-breaking films of all time. Kicking us off at number 10, let's talk about how there are film rules in the first place. It's not like there's a stern film teacher sending directors to the cinematic principal's office for talking out of turn, or film police arresting offending filmmakers and sentencing them to community service shooting features for the Lifetime Movie Network. No, we're talking about the kinds of rules that form a silent contract between filmmakers and film watchers that maybe you can't read off like commandments, but you damn well know when they've been broken. And back in the golden age of Hollywood, where the precedent for much of film was set, something we now call classic Hollywood cinema style emerged. They were a practical set of rules, guidelines, and practices set out to ensure movies do what they do best: tell immersive stories. And what early Hollywood filmmakers quickly realized was that the number one way to keep people in their seats and buying popcorn was to make sure they didn't realize it was all an illusion until the ride was over. So for our first rule, we want to honor films that said "F it" and made damn well sure we all knew it was a film we were watching. We're talking about breaking of the fourth wall. Think Annie Hall and Spaceballs and Horse Feathers and JCVD and The Great Train Robbery and Pierrot Le Fou. Spike Lee has a way with a very Brechtian direct camera address, which, by the way, is a theater term that references the exact distancing effect we're talking about. But for our first pick, we think that Dogville really broke realism down the best.
This is the sad tale of the township of Dogville. Most of the buildings were pretty wretched. More like shacks, frankly. The house in which Tom lived was the best, though, and in good times might almost have passed for presentable.
Sure, it's not as much breaking the fourth wall as it is demolishing all of them, but the effect is exactly the same. It's a constant reminder to the audience that what they're looking at isn't real. The film itself is inspired by Bertolt Brecht, the man the effect is named after. But we think one of the most interesting things about distancing and alienation is that it stops working. After a long enough time, we buy into the story anyhow. We forgive the lack of set and ultimately forget it. Sure, the walls have been broken down, but the effect is the opposite. We let ourselves be sucked in anyway. But pulling out a megaphone and screaming, "Hey audience, you're watching a movie," isn't the only way guaranteed to kill a buzz. There's all kinds of smaller technical rules you can screw up to jolt the audience back into rude awareness of that tween 2 rows over who will not stop texting. One of the most important things you've got to get right is the editing. Don't let anything jump jarringly in the frame, only cut when motivated, always cut on action, but these rules got broken too. By Battleship Potemkin, the repeat cut, and October with the metaphorical cut, and by La Jetées' assembly of still images. However, if there's one bad boy editing rule breaker to rule them all, it's gotta be Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless.
Vous voulez celui-là? Que ça frégate à la con. Patricia.
That's right, back when everyone was trying to make you forget about editing and cuts and believe that movies were real, Godard was chopping up his film and throwing them right in your face, bringing the very artifice of editing right to the forefront with the jump cut. Critics called it visual jazz, filmic cubism, Michel's hyperactive point of view. Collaborators have explained it as anarchy acting out against the establishment, freedom with no concern for the norm, and an attempt to sabotage the film. We're not sure what the truth is or if it even matters, because the jump cut made a hell of a splash. In addition to editing rules, another nearly ubiquitous feature of this classical Hollywood continuity style is a predictable placement of the camera. Filmmakers like Mizoguchi and Agnes Varda have drifted away from typical camera placement to beautiful effect in films like Ugetsu and Vagabond. But the most important rule of all is called the 180-degree rule, and it's a shooting guideline for establishing a dependable screen geography. If you keep the camera on one side of your scene, you end up with a consistent left and right across all the shots. And although this kind of screen continuity pervades almost every film you could have seen in theaters for the past century, Yasujiro Ozu tossed it out the window when he made Tokyo Story.
庄司はどうだった？
いただきましたわ。
そう。
会社の帰りなんかにどこかで飲んで遅くなって電車がなくなるとよくここへお友達連れてきたりして。
そうか。
じゃああんたも困った組じゃの。
Composition was everything to Mr. Ozu, a man who never once used a zoom, avoiding moving his camera at all costs, and used one dissolve, ever. So when it came to deciding between a coherent space and a beautiful match cut, he chose the latter. The man was notorious for replacing the famously predictable 180-degree rule with his own disorienting 360-degree version. In place of left-right geography, he substituted perfect graphic matches. But it worked. His patient storytelling and playful style are only an obstacle insomuch as they are unfamiliar to the audience. But after 10 minutes of acclamation, they're just as engrossing as any generic shot, reverse shot dialogue scene, and then some. At number 7, we also want to honor films that took the whole idea of representing reality, filming the world and capturing its light, and said fuck it, let's blow it all up. Think Cocteau's Orpheus, or 2001's Stargate, or Throw Away Your Books, Rally in the Streets. Think Tarkovsky's mixture of film stock in Andrei Rublev, Spielberg's selective color in Schindler's List, and Wes Anderson's eclectic aspect ratios in the Grand Budapest Hotel. However, for our number 7, we think there's none rule-breakier than Enter the Void. Part feature film, part cinematic DMT trip, Enter the Void is the closest thing there is to a mainstream incarnation of the strobe film, which was actually a real thing in avant-garde cinema, and close your eyes epileptics because they look like this. And that's enough of that. Enter the Void used lighting and camera and visual effects in a way unlike anything ever before it. The story is an out-of-body POV experience in more ways than one, and an absolute visual revelation in terms of how to view the world, which is why we have no problem including it on our list. So what this all comes down to is expectation. Rules are expectations, and breaking them isn't necessarily violating an inflexible law of gravity so much as it is throwing the audience a curveball compared to how they've learned to interpret cinema. One of the easiest ways to quickly get audiences on board with different sets of film conventions is by bundling them up into convenient packages called genres. When we see a set of specific genre signifiers, we know the kind of language the film is about to start speaking, so we can pull out our mental phrase books and follow along. But what happens when films break from their conventions, when they specifically subvert the expectations they've gone out of their way to establish? These are films like $1 Million Baby, Audition, and Life is Beautiful, Dead or Alive, Sunshine or Fanaa. Cabin in the Woods broke it down in meta fashion, but for our number 6, we're going with From Dusk Till Dawn. Quick-talking Tarantino-esque crime film starring Tarantino and a fresh from TV Clooney, From Dusk Till Dawn makes it just about halfway through without a single undead, before quickly pivoting into the kind of balls-out, action-y vampire shoot-'em-up that's pure Rodriguez. Does it work? Depends on who you ask and whether they like surprise birthday parties or not, but it definitely breaks the rule, definitely raises some awesome questions about expectations and genre freedom, and finishes with a bang and a middle finger to tradition in true B-movie fashion. Shifting gears to the broader strokes of storytelling and moving fully beyond the physical craft of filmmaking, one of the most allegedly unassailable features of a story is the protagonist. Stories are about people, according to Aristotle, common sense, and your 8th grade English teacher. Or at least animals that act like people. Or fish that behave in a slightly human manner. But what about films that say screw that? Like Ahasar Balthazar and its protagonist Donkey, or Rubber's sociopathic tire. Phone Booth and Barry buck tradition by getting rid of everything but the protagonist. And Russian Ark makes the history of an entire country its hero. But we think our number 5 belongs to Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, for dramatically and shockingly changing courses midstream. Hitchcock purposefully set out to mislead his audience and then devastate them, like an old-timey George R.R. Martin. He used their expectations against them, carefully cueing them to invest in Marion Crane as the hero of the film before stabbing them in the metaphorical heart. Because while Psycho's twist is almost a cliche now, at its time it was almost unthinkable, making the effect all the better, and reinvigorating screen death with the kind of impact it deserved. So if filmmakers can fracture images, genres, and heroes, is nothing sacred? How far can they go? And we all know how stories work. Beginning, middle, end. One thing leads to the next. A character wants something and we watch them try to get it. Or do we? Filmmakers like Tarantino, Nolan, and Kurosawa thought differently in films like Pulp Fiction, Memento, and Rashomon. They swapped the order up, flipped it backwards, and ran the tape back. The Sweet Hereafter went backwards before it was cool. Run Lola Run revised itself 3 times. Planet Terror chopped out a whole 10 minutes for funsies, and Intolerance told 4 stories at the same time. But for the film we think that gave a middle finger to story structure best, it's gotta go to Alan Renee's Last Year at Marienbad.
La première fois que je vous ai vu, c'était dans le jardin de Frederiksbad. Vous étiez seul, un peu à l'écart des autres, debout contre une balustrade de pierre, sur laquelle votre main était posée, le bras à demi étendu. Vous étiez tourné un peu de côté vers la grande allée centrale, et vous ne m'avez pas vu venir. Seul, le bruit de mes pas sur le gravier a fini par attirer votre attention. et vous avez tourné la tête.
Je ne crois pas qu'il s'agisse de moi. Vous devez vous tromper.
Truth, fiction, time, place, logic, and cause all fold in on themselves, creating an Escher-like narrative structure that refuses to be linearized in any kind of story map. It's a question with no answer, a film with no meaning, as beautiful as it is enigmatic. It is a story about a story a man is telling a woman that we may or may not believe. René claims that when he wrote the story, he didn't believe it, but when he directed it, he did. They loved, they didn't. They knew each other, they never met. She's dead, alive, doesn't matter. The film marches onward with no clear meaning or truth. Just a story unlike any other, yet like them all at the same time. Okay, so we can chop and screw a plot like a 90s DJ. What about throwing it out altogether? The cardinal sin of storytelling is to be boring, right? Well, maybe not. Clerks is just a few guys at a convenience store. Gummo meanders through a strange world with no real sense of direction. My Dinner with Andre is just a conversation. Man with a Movie Camera is just images of a city. Koyaanisqatsi, the world. And Cleo de Saint-Cassette is 2 hours in the life of a young singer waiting for medical test results. But that's all still a little much for our number 3, which goes to great lengths to tell a story with as little action as possible. In Jean Dielman's 23 Quoi du Commerce 1420, man, that is a whole sentence worth of French. You know what? F it. Let's just write it up there on the screen. The film is honest about life in a way most others are not. It does not select the fascinating. It does not focus on the important. It does not trim the fat. Director Chantal Akerman spares no detail. Nothing is extraneous. Peeling potatoes is as important as murder. For over 3 hours, Jean Dielman meditates on the daily routine of a mother as she cooks, cleans, engages in sex work, and repeats. By foregoing the extravagant, the mishandling of a single spoon is a major plot point and cause for attention. It is an attempt at life undistilled, and it's a beautiful, tiny epic for its narrative sense. But the envelope pushes further. Sure, we can throw out plot, but what about causality? What about coherence and logic? Enter surrealism, a world where 1 + 1 = blue. Check out Vera Chytilova's Daisies, Jodorowsky's The Holy Mountain, Lynch's Eraserhead or Inland Empire, Villeneuve's Enemy, and Lanthimos' The Lobster. But if there's a clown king of the surrealist film tricksters, it's gotta be Louis Buñuel. And we could go with just about any of his work, but for our number 2 pick, we'll give this slot to the most successful Bizarro Fest, the discreet charm of the bourgeoisie.
Qu'est-ce que c'est que cette plaisanterie?
Et pour montrer votre valeur, vous avez invité à dîner avec vous le spectre du commandeur.
Et pour montrer votre valeur, vous avez invité à dîner avec vous.
True to its surreal nature, it is not easy to summarize the discreet charm of the bourgeoisie. It is a story about wealthy French diners repeatedly showing up for meals they are unable to eat. Instead, they find themselves evading the police or sneaking off to have sex, or imposed upon by the army, or in the dream sequence of a stage play. They never stop searching for a feast, constantly frustrated by illogical interruptions, but they never question their reality either. It is a bizarre story world where anything can happen, asking us all to interrogate our own logical assumptions and those of the stories we consume daily. The surrealists were definitely onto something by rejecting waking logic in favor of the oniric sort, but they're not the only ones to do it. In the same way we receive visual information as a child before words have meanings and concepts have rigid associations, visionary filmmakers have sought to break down the rule of ordered thought and speak to us primally. So for our number 1 slot, we want to honor filmmakers that have set out to break the greatest rules of all, those of the human mind. Kubrick dabbled in this with 2001: A Space Odyssey, Malick with Tree of Life, Fellini with 8.5, and Antonioni with La Aventura. But this slot belongs to none other than Andrei Tarkovsky, whose every film could top this list. But we're going with our favorite, The Mirror. There's nothing like dissecting a nonverbal film out loud to suck the life of it, but they pay me by the word, so please forgive me for trying. And trying and trying and trying. Thank Yep, Tarkovsky was a genius to whom no rules could apply. His films are poetry where others are prose. His images speak, but not in words or symbols. They do not attempt to convey to us logic or language or concrete plot, but instead thoughts, emotions, memories in the abstract before processing and verbalization. To use his words, he was a sculptor in time, and as pretentious as it may sound, we believe it, which is why his masterpiece is our pick for the best rule-breaking film of all time. So what do you think? Do you disagree with one of our picks? Do we leave out one of your favorite cinematic mavericks? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe for more Cinefix movie lists.